vessels of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
But I also believe that a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
Guns will be taken, and no one will be able to be armed. We will take all guns.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city.
Global governance at last. Is it one world? The central bankers in charge. But aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do?
As for me, give me liberty or give me death!
Representative Steve Toth joins us, and he's made national news coming up with a legislative plan to battle back against this, and for the state of Texas to not recognize unconstitutional federal laws, even if they tried to just to explain to people, because I was watching him on Wolf Blitzer, and he'll be able to elaborate on this. Blitzer was interrupting him, acting like it was just preposterous. Congress could pass a law saying turn your guns in. It's really unconstitutional and abhorrent, and you'd have to get a constitutional amendment, and even that is highly debatable because it doesn't give you the right. It points out the unalienable right that's already there. So he joins us. His career began at a company, Johnson & Johnson Company, and led to work as a regional trainer where he developed and practice management consulting program called a residency to retirement. He served as director of marketing for Apple. It goes on to 99. The point is he is an entrepreneur out there, not one of these sponges, and he's been involved with the Tea Party and involved in a lot of different community and church organizations, and it's just a really exciting to have him join us. State Representative Steve Toth, thank you so much for coming on, sir.
Hey, Alex, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. I mean, I'm chomping at the bit here because this is so outrageous. Why do you think Obama's coming for the guns? And what do you think of him like Saddam Hussein surrounding himself with children? And then we'll move into your legislation.
Well, I mean, it goes all the way back to Rahm Emanuel. Don't let any crisis go to waste. This is part of their agenda. This has always been part of their agenda to make it difficult for law-abiding citizens to own a gun.
What was your take? Did you have a chance to watch his speech?
Yeah, I did. I was actually in the studio here in Austin while he was giving the speech. And again, it's funny because Wolf Blitzer said, after it was done, he said, he gave it in great detail. Well, I'm sorry, there are 23 things, and he laid out maybe 3 or 4 of them. And at the end of the day, this is no different than Obamacare. You deliver a bill that's 4,000 pages that no one has a chance to read. It gets voted in, and then it goes miraculously, goes from 4,000 pages to 40,000 pages. And this is how he does things. And it's just at some point, we've got to say enough is enough and stand up and say our Constitution matters. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. We don't vote on whether or not we have liberty. We don't vote on whether or not you can or can't do something. We have this article. It's called the Constitution. Our rights come from God and are enumerated in that document. And it's very clear about what we can and can't do.
I agree with you. And your call for the Second Amendment Preservation Act here in Texas has become a big national story. A lot of other states are saying they're going to try to introduce similar legislation. And Wolf Blitzer was trying to interrupt you so that you couldn't explain the constitutionality of this and how it works. But I want you to be able to elaborate on it. But expanding on that, 800-plus cities, 30-something states last time I checked, don't arrest illegal aliens for even drunk driving because they're just above the law. They don't arrest them for being illegal. They don't even take them to be deported. They won't deport most of them most of the time now because Obama signed an order. Now, that's all unconstitutional with the feds and the states ignoring the law. Well, why can't we ignore federal laws if they're clearly unconstitutional?
Exactly. I mean, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. At some point, you've got to draw a line in the sand and say, enough is enough. We're not sliding anymore towards a king. I grew up in upstate New York. I moved my family here because we believed it was the greatest state in the nation, greatest opportunity to raise our children in freedom and prosperity. And the thing that gets me about what's going on in New York right now, where they're limiting lawful people to own a gun, make it more difficult for them to get a gun. It was just 3 or 4 weeks ago that this crazed killer, this is a guy that beat his mother to death with a hammer. He beat his mother to death with a hammer, bludgeoned her head with a hammer. And oh, by the way, hammers are the reason more people died from being bludgeoned with a hammer than any kind of rifle, let alone an assault rifle. But
that's right.
He beat his mother to death with a hammer, and then the libs in New York sent him to jail, where they promptly let him out. They promptly let him out. What did he do? He set his house on fire a few weeks ago, shot 2 volunteer firefighters, first responders, people that give their lives to save others. He shot them like a coward that he is. He shot them dead. And what does New York State legislation do? Rather than getting on TV and saying, "Boy, we blew it. We haven't made it tough enough on criminals. We should have locked this guy away and thrown away the key. We should have put legislation in place to ensure that this guy would never see another sunset again." Instead, what do? It's this baloney. They go and create legislation that has nothing to do. This guy got this gun illegally. He didn't buy it at a gun show. He didn't buy it at a shop. This was a stolen weapon. And just, we don't want to have a real discussion about what to do. We just want theatrics. We just want games. And it's just another opportunity to erode our rights.
I agree. State Representative hailing from Texas, Steve Toth, is our guest. And we're going to give you his website as well, as if you want to get behind him and support him. But here's the bottom line. We either get on the offensive like you're doing, or it's over, because they are going to use these dead children. They are going to wrap themselves around this tragedy. They are going to bill all gun owners as responsible, calling the NRA mass murder enablers, saying gun owners are all secretly Ku Klux Klan, as Fox Sports has said. We either get on the offensive and say, in every case, and it's now come out with the Batman shooter, that he was on a bunch of psychotropic drugs. They've been on drugs where the inserts say they can cause you to commit mass murder or kill yourself, a massive increase. The guy that shot an Austin cop for no reason at a Walmart, was bombed out of his brain on Xanax. He was a Xanax addict, taking more than what you're even supposed to. I mean, I've known people on Xanax. It destroys their lives. I mean, I've talked to doctors who will not prescribe it. And of course, I mean, I heard this guy shot a cop for no reason. I said, I bet that guy's on psychotropics. Boom, he was on antipsychotic, basically. And now the Batman shooter, Harris, Klebold, in like 99% of the cases, they're trying to suppress the file on Lanza, who tried to buy a gun not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 times the month before, couldn't. His mother had gone through some of the strictest gun laws in the country to get these semi-autos, if you believe the story. And again, they ignore all that and say, because a guy that murdered his mother with a hammer went and got an illegal gun and shot people, I've got to give my guns up. Because a guy went and killed his mommy and went and it's always devil-worshipping goths on drugs. I mean, if anybody needs to be profiled, it's these guys. Instead, I've got to lose my rights. So what about getting on the offensive here?
Yeah, that's it exactly. I mean, everyone in every state has got to take an interest in this thing. If you think that this is just about guns, you're crazy. This is about eroding all of your rights. And I said to Governor Perry last night, and he's behind this as well. And had such a great discussion with him. He walked up to me when I was talking to him about the bill, and he grabbed me by both arms, and he said, Steve, he said, this isn't about hunting. This isn't about my right to be a sportsman. If I want to use an assault-style rifle to kill hogs, that's my right. And if I don't want to kill hogs and I just want to have that in my gun safe in case I need it against the federal government or whatever, that's my right. He is just a liberty-loving
Absolutely.
And I'm thankful he's my governor. But, you know, the deal is y'all need to reach out to your elected officials. This is a fight that we all need to be involved in. And it's not just about guns. It's how we educate our children. It's the kind of food that we eat and drink. It's everything. We've got to stop this, and we've got to stop it now.
Well, I mean, I've disagreed with Rick Perry on quite a few things, like the NAFTA highway and stuff, but the governor has been resisting and really defending the Second Amendment, and we need to see more of that. And I've got to say, I'm proud of Texas, but also Kentucky, Washington State, many other states that are resisting. But I have introduced into the public forum articles of impeachment. And we've got a Texas congressman who has said he will introduce articles of impeachment if Obama tries to use executive orders. Well, now he's saying 23 executive orders, but like you said earlier, won't tell us what they are. Well, I know what they've said they're going to do because the anti-gun groups have press conferences on C-SPAN. I mean, I know what they're going to do. They're just going to have the federal government put you on a list, no judge, no jury, and say you can't own a gun. They're going to ban importation. Go ahead.
A couple days ago, he was talking about there's got to be an administrative fix or solution. That's code for registering our guns. I'm just here to tell you. I mean,
no, that's it. Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. And when that happens, we're done. We're just done. And you know, frankly, there needs to be some outrage for those of you that are listening in New York, and again, Sheldon Silver and the outrageous leadership that he has demonstrated in the state of New York, what he's brought that state down to. It's a shame.
Well, it's so creepy that Bloomberg and Como and all these people, Dianne Feinstein has introduced a bill that says you'll have to come re-register your guns, and they can, quote, do a forced buyback if they want, all this vague, really draconian language. Yeah. They've all got concealed carry, I've played clips for admitting it, and bodyguards. I mean, she's worth $100 million in her financial filings. Most people, I mean, I'm a successful talk show host, but I mean, I don't have the money to have bodyguards and stuff. I mean, I know you don't have the money to have bodyguards, I would guess.
I don't either. My campaign manager 2 years ago was walking through Bruce, if you're listening, love you, buddy. But as he was walking through the parking lot at the Woodlands Mall, two guys started following him. So he starts taking the circuitous route around cars and everything. And sure enough, they're still following him. He walks around a van, drops the package, draws, and as they came around the corner, he looked at these two guys and said, "Yes, can I help you?" And they took off running. He immediately called 911. And like any good concealed handgun license owner, he said, I was in fear of my life. Two men were coming after me, and I drew. And the police arrived. He described them, and he said, you know, those two guys, we've been trying to catch them. Good thing you didn't shoot them, but we've been trying to catch those guys. They'd mugged two people that day. So evidently the president and Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, they're allowed to have protection. But I'm not allowed to protect myself.
It's incredible. I mean, we have crime maps from local governments compiled then by the FBI, and you can see where you have increased gun ownership, you have lower home invasions, lower crime rates, lower muggings, lower carjackings, and the area where people are disarmed is where this happens. I mean, I've been in New York myself, and I weigh 260 pounds, and I'm a pretty strong guy. I mean, I'm not like, you know, He-Man or something, but I can bench press, 350 pounds. I can, stuff like that. And I've had guys come and sit on both sides of me and ask me what's in my bag and stuff and try to intimidate me. Yeah. I mean, this is not the way I want to live. And it's just so despicable that these mob boss types like Rahm Emanuel and people consciously have this criminal instinct to want to disarm us. Right.
And that's it in a nutshell. Anything that they can do. We don't have the Second Amendment for hunting. We don't have the Second Amendment for putting trophy guns on our wall. We have the Second Amendment so that we can preserve the First Amendment, which is the free right to assemble and free speech. And when people live in fear of the government, we will have tyranny. And as soon as they take our guns away from us, and again, this is a slow erosion, we will lose that freedom. And we've got to get to the point where we say enough is enough and stand up.
Well, sure. If the federal government wasn't buying 1.6 billion hollow point bullets, if they weren't deploying armored personnel carriers, if they weren't dressing like Darth Vader, if they weren't trying to gut our borders and calling for world government, if they didn't have 4 network TV shows bad-mouthing the Founding Fathers, I mean, these are obvious usurpers. They're going down the list of things tyrants do and double-checking every box. So that's all the more reason. It's like Jesse Ventura said, when the government disarms and the government lays down its guns, then I'll think about it. And obviously that's tongue-in-cheek. The point is that they are arming against us. We need our guns to protect ourselves. And the media always tries to act like, wow, the state rep just said we need guns to protect ourselves from the federal government. Well, that's what the founders said. And if you don't like that, you're not an American.
No, I mean, that's not like a new thought. I mean, this is something that our founding fathers knew, that just like gravity, you hold something in there and you drop it, it's going to hit the ground. Our liberty, our freedom will erode from the gravity of tyranny. It's a slow erosion. It's not a quick on-off switch. It's a slow erosion. And we have got to be on guard against it.
But it is speeding up, though. It is
speeding up at an astronomical rate, exponential rate. So, yeah, I mean, and yes, our founding fathers said when government lives in fear of the people, there's liberty. When people live in fear of the government, there's tyranny. They understood that. They understood it well because of what they endured through King George. We don't want another king.
When we come back, I know listeners already have heard you report on it on WOAI. It's already made national news via thedrudgereport.com and Infowars.com. But I want to come back and give out your website. But also I want to talk about what your piece of proposed legislation would do and how we would implement it. And it's very, very simple. I mean, the feds won't even pick up the illegal aliens if police do arrest them. I've talked to the police. It's been on the news. So if that's illegal and unconstitutional, because that's something you're supposed to do, then how can the states get in trouble if they don't do something that's unconstitutional?
As we saw in Katrina, and as we are watching now in New York and New Jersey, the federal government can't and won't help you in a crisis. FEMA ran out of water and MREs in days. Electricity is still off to over 1 million people. The Red Cross, who is quick to beg for money, is now slow to react. Don't put it off any longer. Get prepared today. While you're on InfoWarsShop.com, check out these other great preparedness items. The Aquapod Kit lets you store up to 65 gallons of water in your bathtub. The Pocket Socket provides you with manual electricity for small electronics like your cell phone. The Life Straw is great for your bug-out bag. And check out our complete line of Interfood products for great tasting and nutritionally dense foods that have a great shelf life. If you are looking to secure your home in a crisis, you can order Strategic Relocations, the film, a great companion to the book Strategic Relocations 3rd edition, and The Secure Home by Joel Skousen. When the time to perform arrives, the time to prepare has already passed. Get prepared now, so if a crisis strikes your home, you and your family will be secure. Go to InfoWarsShop.com.
Now, you noticed Obama just said, I want to give everybody free health care. You deserve it. And then we finally get the bill. It's death panels. It's written by the insurance companies to double your rates. Doesn't give anybody free health care. Obama says, I'm not going to raise taxes unless you make $250,000 a year, I promise. Raises a bunch of taxes on poor people. Massively. I have a responsibility because they've bragged to the Washington Post. I've read their quotes. I've watched their press conferences. We know their attack profile. We know what the 23 executive actions are going to be. We know, and he hinted at a bunch of them in the speech, but I was talking to State Representative here from Texas who's introduced the Firearms Preservation Act. And Steve, continuing with what you were breaking down during the break, describing what Obama's doing masterfully. He's like, hey, I just don't want little kids to get killed. I'm here. I'm going to propose something. DHS is going to run it nationwide, $5 billion. Get ready.
Yeah, I mean, he's masterful at this. It's smoke and mirrors. You hide behind children. You pull at the heartstrings to make an emotional connection with moms and dads. And then you introduce this nebulous legislation. And then once the ne'er-do-wells in Washington pass it, then what he does is he takes his bureaucrats. The only thing worse than a politician that has been in office too long is a bureaucrat that has been in office too long. And these bureaucrats are the ones that craft the legislation once it's passed. Obamacare was only about 4,000 pages, only, right? But once it was, the bill that you had to pass before you read it, well, that thing is upwards of 40,000 pages of regulation today. And the devil in this thing is really, truly in the details. And you won't find out what the details are. This is the way he does things. The things that are just too controversial to make it onto the House floor or the well of the Senate, that stuff isn't seen. It's not going to be addressed in this legislation. And so they're going to keep it nice and nebulous, warm, fuzzy, children, puppies, and then pass this. And then you pass it, and you find out that our guns are registered, and they're being taken away.
And by the way, that's what makes me so angry is that Dianne Feinstein, we have the clip of her saying, if I have my way, all your guns are turned in, Mr. and Mrs. America. And then I have her new bill where it says, oh, yeah, you got to come re-register them. We'll decide if you can keep them, but we need money for a forced buyback. And then Obama's up there going, it's just reasonable. We just want crazy people not to have guns. I mean, it's such a deception. You'd think once the public learned that they lie so much, then everyone would turn against them. But it's almost like people have just gotten used to being lied to.
Well, check this out. When the liberals say that the war on drugs has been an abject failure, they say it's because interdiction is impossible. You can't keep drugs out of the country. You can't keep drugs out of the hands of someone that wants drugs. But evidently, they think you can keep firearms out of the hands of criminals. I mean, it's just pure hypocrisy.
Oh, that was my next point. They're announcing Homeland Security's main duty. It's not Al-Queda anymore. You've seen the training manuals, gun owners, returning veterans, conservatives. They're now announcing this is what Homeland Security is a new thing to harass and nickel and dime gun owners where somebody's got a legal AR-15, not modified, guy has no criminal record, businessman. What was it, in Minnesota? He pulls the trigger at the shooting range. It goes full auto. They rat on him, and he goes to jail. And the ATF says, we know he didn't do it on purpose, but we still want to put you in jail. To do 5 more minutes with us, I know you've got to go, but I want to talk about your Firearms Preservation Act, how people find it. Fire out the best website, sir.
The best way to get a hold of us at this point is just on Facebook.
State Representative from Texas, Steve Toth, represents District 15, and he is almost for 5 more minutes. I've got some big breaking news after he leaves us in the next segment. I'm just going to leave it at that. Big breaking news, and this is confirmed. This is, well, we'll break it down on the other side and go over what this means. Getting into your State Preservation Act, tell people about that. I guess they can go to Steve.
It's Steve Toth for House District 15. So on Facebook.
So that's the best place to visit, and
that's the best place.
How do people find a piece of legislation? How do they find a copy of it so they can get it to the?
Yeah, we're coming out. We're not out of legislative council yet, so it's being drafted right now, and we've been told by Leg Council it'll be done Friday, and then it's going to be in the hands of the Attorney General. Reason being, we want to make sure that it's buttoned up as best we can. We're going to put it in his hands and let him dot the I's and cross the T's, and then we'll go from there. We only serve in Texas 140 days every 2 years, and we can't introduce legislation in the first couple months. So the neat thing about this, and you're probably familiar with the TSA bill that Representative Simpson put through a couple years ago.
Absolutely. It's going to be back now.
Well, and the local radio station there in Houston said, well, I hope this isn't like the TSA bill. It didn't get passed. And I said, well, the TSA bill didn't catch fire until April or May last year. It's January. So the nice thing about where we're at right now is that, and thanks to Texans that have just shown so much support for this thing, that they're calling their elected officials and saying, we're behind this. They're respectfully calling their officials and saying, we're behind this, and we appreciate if you'd be behind it. And that's the best way to talk to one of these people, because at the end of the day, we serve here. It's really not even. I have a full-time job. I own a company. I have employees, and I do this on the side. I'm paid $600 a month. It barely, covers your expenses.
No, you're a statesman. You're what we need in there, and I just appreciate you being on the front lines of this. And we've got a good chance to get this rammed through. And it will take time, and we've got a good chance to get other states to pick it up. Because what are, in closing, a few other areas we can get on the offense?
Reach out through social media to people and start the discussion. I'm amazed when you get under a liberal skin, they're calling my office right now, F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb, because they can't have an intellectual discussion around this because their position is just so weak.
Well, they're authoritarians.
Oh, it's unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, we just need to ramp up the discussion, and we need to do it with integrity and honesty.
And I mean, I want to put it back on them, too. Stop saying we have blood on our hands. If anybody has blood on their hands, it's the drug manufacturers putting mentally ill people on stuff that's known to cause psychotic outbreaks, and it's making public schools gun-free zones. I love the NRA's new ad.
It's just a soft target, and Wayne LaPierre hit the nail right on the head. The only way to stop an evil person with a gun is a good person with a gun. It's the only way it happens. You look at all of these shootings that have happened as of late, and it wasn't until an armed citizen or a police officer stopped them.
Well said.
Period. So, appreciate you.
Representative, thank you so much for spending time with us, and thank you for being a leader for Texas and America. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Al.
Thank you. He'll know more tomorrow, by the way, as more of Obama's plans leak out. Let me tell you, that's what makes this so much worse, is that they are going with a sneaky angle. But that's what they always do. He writes the NDAA, then says he's against it, then says, don't worry, if it passes, I'll veto it. Then he doesn't veto it, he signs it, and it turns out he wrote it. That was all the plan. So there's no telling what they're going to do, and then they're going to get the legislation written up separately and then have another mass shooting and then just sign a bunch of executive orders. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.